Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so this slide you see up here, I actually found this after I had written my presentation here. So I just kind of threw this at the beginning. And this, I think, dovetails into some of the criticism that the Young Skeptics, which is a critical thinking group, has gotten. I think what you can do is, instead of referring to governments in this case, you can substitute your favorite large institution, whatever they happen to be, for government, and essentially you get the same reaction. Critical thinking is important to all of us, but it's a threat to some, and I think you can understand why. So today, as Kim had mentioned, the theme is raising secular children. Well, I think the first question we need to ask is, what does it mean to be secular? And I looked it up, and the different dictionary definition is denoting attitudes, activities, or other things that have no religious or spiritual basis. Second, let's consider what responsibility we have to our children, well, or to all children, for that matter. I don't think we should raise secular children. Now, this may sound kind of surprising, but don't worry, I don't think we ought to raise religious children either. In fact, to declare a child secular or religious is to, in a sense, define them in terms of our own goals for them. I think it would be better to respect them as individuals, to let them choose their own goals in life, and to define themselves according to their own conscience. But you may say, well, they're only children. They don't have the ability to form their own opinions and decide what to believe on their own. Well, that's true to an extent. 4, 5, or 6-year-olds really have just a limited ability to form their own independent opinions. Now, there's two ways to look at this. First, you could recognize that a child is vulnerable at this point and at this age, and we need to be careful not to impose our biases or our fears or in any way squelch their natural curiosity. The other view is to see this vulnerability as an opportunity. And this brings me to what's called the Good News Club. Most of you probably already know that the Good News Club is a fundamentalist Christian program sponsored by Child Evangelism Fellowship that uses public elementary schools to evangelize children. They do this because they clearly recognize the vulnerability of young children. In fact, the first reference provided to new Good News Club instructors is a book by Dr. Sam Doherty titled Why Evangelize Children. Now, Dr. Doherty says in his book, quote, "The time to train an animal and teach it how to respond to your commands is when it's young. Later on, it will be very, very difficult." So, instead of protecting the children, the Good News Clubs seek to exploit the child's vulnerability. Dr. Doherty goes on to explain, quote, "We are commanded to evangelize even if those we evangelize do not, for some reason, accept or even understand what we are preaching." This is, of course, because obedience doesn't require comprehension. So, what is this message that they're commanded to teach? What is the Good News Club, what do they wish to impart to these defenseless children? Quote, "All children, at least those who have not accepted Christ, are spiritually dead. They possess a sinful nature," unquote. And just to drive this point home, I'm actually going to quote from an actual Good News Club lesson. But in order to do that, I need a volunteer. And could you help me out, Leslie? Don't worry, there's no speaking lines, but I'll need you to have to stand up here with me. You're going to be playing the role of a 5 or 6-year-old child. I'd have a real child come up here, but to be honest, even role play, I wouldn't do this with a real child. Okay, so here's the lesson. It's called God's Gift to You. Make sure I have my gift here. Oh, here it is right here. Okay, so the lesson is, I've got something for you, Leslie. You've earned this. just like you can earn an allowance for doing chores. You have done something to earn this that's in this envelope. Do you know what you've done? You've done something we've all done. You've sinned. Who can tell me what sin is? And typically the child would respond. Now the Bible says all have sinned. That means everyone, including you. You have thought, said, or done wrong things that breaks God's law. Let's see what you've earned by sinning. There you go. Go ahead and open the envelope and show the people what you've earned by sinning. Yes. Now the Bible says, if you can't read it, says death, by the way. The Bible says the wages of sin is death. You have earned death, separation from God forever in a terrible place of punishment. Now God is holy, and he never does anything wrong. God is just, and he must punish sin. So like it or not, all of us have earned death. Thank you very much. Well done. Thank you. A hand for Leslie. Very good. Now, we had a little fun with that, but if you're like me, you'd be truly horrified that they would actually do this to a child. But instead of just being outraged at this, I wanted a professional opinion. So I took this particular lesson to a mental health professional, and I asked for his opinion. And what he wrote back to me was, here is a good example of how specific beliefs and values can directly lead to mental health problems affecting self-esteem, self-confidence, coping skills, relationships, lifestyle, personality, and more. For a child to identify himself or herself with a sinful nature is very traumatic and an alienating belief. Such a belief is incompatible with mental health, unquote. So here we have confirmation that what the Good News Club is doing and what they're teaching is in fact psychological abuse. This is what happens when you treat a child as a means to an end and not an end in themselves. I think we can do better. And that's why we founded the Young Skeptics. The Young Skeptics is a critical thinking club designed to give children the skills they need to find answers on their own. Instead of threatening the children with death, we empower them with science. Instead of coercing children to obey, we encourage them to question. Instead of treating boys and girls like animals, we respect them and we help them realize their full potential. We're teaching kids how to think, not what to think. As a society, I can't think of anything more important than having intellectually and emotionally healthy children that have the skills and confidence to enter adulthood as critical thinkers. If you agree, please make a donation. Add your name to our growing list of volunteers and let other people know that there is an alternative that respects and empowers children. Thank you very much.